I am the former I am the former CEO of Axiom Technologies, which is a last mile broadband provider. And I stepped down from that role in 2018 to spearhead the creation of the National Digital Equity Center, which has a goal of closing the digital divide here in Maine and across the United States. For disclosure, I am on the board of the Connect Maine Authority, of which some of you have applied for funding, for planning grants, or will apply for infrastructure grants. And I was on the Governor's Economic Recovery Committee and chaired the Infrastructure Committee. And it was that committee that did that provided all of the recommendations to the governor for broadband, digital equity, and digital inclusion. We have raised about $5 million to provide free digital literacy classes, devices for folks that meet the income eligibility guidelines for Maine and its people. So today we're going to talk about the work that we do at the National Digital Equity Center and how you might want to join us to help us close that digital divide. And I'm going to share screen. All right, you all can see that. Okay, let me put you over here. All right. So what is digital equity and digital inclusion? So we know that digital equity is a condition in which all individuals and communities have the information technology capacity to participate in our society, democracy, and economy. When the pandemic hit, we saw how deep the digital divide was in the state. We had students who couldn't connect to remote classrooms. We had employees who couldn't participate as a remote worker because they either didn't have an internet connection, or they couldn't because it wasn't available to them, or they couldn't afford it, or they didn't have the equipment to participate. And then the group that I lost the most sleep over were our older adults who were already battling isolation and loneliness. And now we have a shelter in place directive, and for those that did not use technology, they were then cut off even further from their family and their loved ones. Digital equity is necessary for civic and cultural participation, employment, lifelong learning, and access to essential services. We achieve digital equity by promoting digital inclusion, which include affordable broadband, affordable equipment, digital literacy training, and public computer access. The National Digital Equity Center writes digital equity and digital inclusion plans for communities. We include plans for how do you achieve affordable broadband equipment? How do you promote digital literacy? Where are the places that there's public computer access? Are there community advocates such as yourselves that can help promote digital equity and digital inclusion in your communities? And then broadband adoption, and we'll talk about that one in just a few minutes. When you are looking at your community and you're considering bringing in broadband, building network, contracting with providers, whatever path you're going to go, the question you have to have is there a plan for affordable broadband for low to moderate income families that cannot afford internet connection? There needs to be a plan to identify community members that need equipment, laptops, desktops, tablets, etc. Does your community have the digital skills to participate in our digital economy? And this just talks about the variety of technical skills, and we need those skills to participate in work, in different work assignments that you might have, or to do a telehealth visit with your provider, or again connecting with family and friends and around the globe. We do a lot of surveys with communities, and not surprising, the most response we have on classes that local communities might like to take, and this is an aggregate among all of the surveys that we did. 94% of our students want to learn how to do video streaming, how to get rid of your cable network or your dish network, and participate, subscribe to some of those video streaming channels. we're used to using a remote control. What happens when that remote control is not there? What's a smart TV and all those apps that are available on the smart TV? And second, in line are all the workforce development skills, Microsoft Word, Excel, QuickBooks, and then basic knowledge of computer, internet safety, connecting with family and friends. And not surprising, using social media is not one of our most popular classes because people can figure it out once they're online pretty much for themselves. Is there public Wi-Fi? Are there places like libraries and adult education locations that have computers available for public use? In Washington County, we have the Axiom Education and Training Center, Washington County Adult Ed. People can go in there. There are computers for folks to use. And we're really lucky in this state because all of our libraries belong to the main school and library network. They all have 100 meg symmetrical connection, and many of those libraries have 1 or 2 or more computers available for public use. Are there community volunteers that can promote digital inclusion efforts? We have a lot of communities right now that are promoting the Affordable Connectivity Program, which is the FCC program for discounted broadband. Those local community members, advocates, are helping other community members to know that that is a service that's out there for folks to get discounted broadband. And then what's the community's take rate? Do all of the homes have a computer? So we do when we're doing digital equity and digital inclusion plans, we do a deep dive into the demographics of the communities that we're working with. And that includes understanding the demographics of the community members, as well as broadband adoption, which is a survey that the American Community Survey, US Census, does periodically for folks. Elaine let me know most of the communities that would be on this call. And so I did a little bit of an analysis for those of you that are here today. And so these statistics are from 2018. We're waiting for the 2020 statistics to be released sometime in early March. And so how many households are there in a community? How many of those households have a computer? How many have a broadband connection? What's the average family median income? What's the percentage of the community members in that community that have income below the federal poverty guidelines? Need to keep a couple things in mind when you look at this. And one is that this does not include any of the seasonal people who we know come to visit. And so when we're talking households, we're only talking about those homes that actually register as homes in your community. It does not include on the census any of your seasonal visitors. The broadband connection, keep that in mind. It doesn't mean it's a good broadband connection. It may just be a 3/1 or a 7/1 connection. So keep that in mind when you look at these statistics. And as you continue down your path to bring better broadband to your community. The National Digital Equity Center provides those digital equity and digital inclusion plans. We have 3 curricula that we provide. All classes are free and people can take as many classes as they wish. So I wanted to take away that today for this presentation. The classes are broken into 3 different curricula. For work and business, that includes all of the Microsoft classes, Microsoft Word, Excel, Publisher, PowerPoint, QuickBooks for small business, website development for small business. For home and education, at the onset of the pandemic, we did a lot of classes for teachers to learn how to use the Google tools, Google Classroom, Google Meet, as well as for parents to understand the platform that their kiddos were connecting to their teachers. Internet safety for parents and grandparents of teens and tweens, because those kiddos know more than we do, and we need to stay one step ahead of them. There are classes, if you're considering putting a fiber connection in your community, We have classes on how to cut the cord. How do you get rid of your satellite or your dish network? And how do you use those video streaming? And there's so many different services that are out there and different prices, of course. For the final is aging well with technology. So prior to the pandemic, we had an ad hoc group of older adult experts around the state. AARP, UMaine Center on Aging, New England Telehealth Resource Center, the Maine Council on Aging, and several others. And we designed a curricula for folks that were 55 and older. It includes those classes like connecting, video conferencing with family and friends, with healthcare providers, how to protect your online presence and create a good password, how to identify fake news, all of the things that can make our older adults who are going online for the first time vulnerable. And we want to make sure they have all of those skills and knowledge to protect themselves when they're online. There's classes on monitoring your healthcare, monitoring your blood pressure, your weight, your exercise, etc. And again, all of those internet safety classes that are available for folks. That said, anyone can take any class. It does not matter what age you are. Anyone is welcome to take as many classes as they wish. Prior to the pandemic, we held the classes in public places, in our local libraries, adult education programs, older adult organization, community centers, anywhere we could have a public gathering of people. When the pandemic happened, those places were closed. And so our instructors did a great job of moving those classes to an online interactive platform. The class sizes are small. There's usually no more than 10. Students can stay connected to the instructor after the class to do follow-up questions if they forgot something or need better clarification. The problem with that model was that I felt we were making the digital divide deeper here in our state, that there were the people who came to those in-person classes tended to be novice computer users, beginners, and just learning for the first time. And so we received a bit of funding from one of our foundations and started a pilot program and bought 100 tablets that had cell connectivity. And we said, it was not nearly enough for everyone who needed a connection or a device across the state. So we said, if you're 70 and older, you don't have any equipment, or you don't have an internet connection, we will give you this device free. And assign a tutor to you to teach you how to learn it. The devices were mailed to the tablet recipients. They went out fully loaded with all of the applications on them, including Zoom, and a link to that instructor. The first digital literacy session was typically over the phone in teaching someone how to find the on and off button on a device, that tiny little knob that's on the side. And the end game of that first session was to get the student to click on the Zoom link and come face to face with the instructor for the first time. You can just imagine the pure joy when that happens, when people are seeing someone via video conference that they've never been exposed to that before. And the instructor would work with that student enough to get them to the point where they could join any one of those classes. The program was wildly successful, and it spurred a lot of relationships with multiple organizations across the state, healthcare organizations, mental health facilities, libraries, adult eds, older adult organizations. And those organizations raised funds to purchase devices for the people that they were serving, and worked with us at the National Digital Equity Center to help provision the devices, get them into the hands of the people they wanted to send those devices to. And we at the National Digital Equity Center provided all of the tutoring and classes and support so they could learn how to use that device. The state of Maine's Office of Community Development then stepped in and said, we have some funding for you to provide devices to folks that are low to moderate income, no age limit on them. And so we expended one pot of funds. We're on our second one with the Office of Community Development Folks can apply if they meet the income eligibility guidelines. If they have an internet connection, we will give them a refurbished laptop or refurbished desktop. They have to take 5 hours of class instruction, including internet safety, and then we will issue a certificate of ownership. They may keep the device. The tablet, we also require them to take some classes, including internet safety, because the device, we have to pay the cell company for the recurring cost on the internet connectivity. We don't give them, but they may keep them for 1 or 2 years, depending on the program that they're in. We have a partner affiliate program. So once people started coming into physical space, when libraries opened and senior centers opened, we then began a program called the Partner Affiliate On-Site Program. So organizations, it could be a town office, it could be a library, it could be a community center. They would bring together a group of people, they would facilitate the class, and we bring in our instructor over Zoom. And so we have many hands across the state helping us close that digital divide by hosting those classes. We have an online portal. The partner can go in and choose the classes they want to hold on site. They can register students, they can request devices. We do a lot of training around that so that people are comfortable in the online portal for all of our partners. And then we have a volunteer program. We have trained over 70 folks around the state to provide one-on-one tutoring to some of the people that they're serving. Might be someone at a local library or a senior center. And so we're always bringing new volunteers online. It's a lot of stuff we do. And for some organizations, they will do one or the other or all. It just depends on what's the best thing for your organization. We love statistics, right? And so all of our services are free for Maine residents. But I also like to say free is not free. Free means you must register on our registration, enrollment registration. And we ask questions that can sometimes be a hard question to ask. All of the information we gather goes behind a very secure firewall. We only get the aggregate data, so I can do reports like this, that 67% of our students are 50 years and older, 70%, and my favorite is 8% of our students are 80 years old and older. 41% of our students have a high school diploma or less. 20x actually gone up. 30% of our students are unemployed. 34% are retired. 48% of our students have a family median income of $34,900 or less. These statistics tell me that we are reaching some of Maine's most vulnerable populations. Because we're funded, our funding comes from the federal government, the state government, private philanthropy. We have to measure outcomes, and does digital literacy increase workforce skills? Does it mean that a family median income might increase that based on those skills assessment? Does it increase access to educational attainment? If you take a class online with us, does it mean that you are comfortable to take a class online with one of the post-secondary institutions? And aging in place, can older adults remain in their homes longer if they use technology? Does it reduce isolation and loneliness? Does it improve healthcare outcomes? Telehealth increase in the first year of the pandemic. The telehealth visits increased 13,000% across the country, which is an amazing number. I have an aunt, she turns 100 years old next Sunday. We got her on Facebook when she was in her 70s. She's an active Facebook user. She's on looking at all of the pictures and posts from a very big family, her grandchildren, her great grandchildren. And when the pandemic hit, she was used to a lot of visitors, people in and out of her house, and she couldn't do that anymore. And so she started going online. She was doing FaceTime and reading stories to her great grandchildren. I believe that if people want to learn, they can. And so I don't think age has any limits in learning new skills. It's this desire, I believe, more than anything. You can reach me at any time. I'm going to put my own, I will put my contact information in the chat. This is what I do all day, every day. So happy to talk to any of you, or your communities, present to your communities. And I am very happy to take any questions that you might have, because I just threw an awful lot of information out at all of you.
I have a question. Susan, how many do you, since you love statistics and numbers so much, how many devices has NDEC, the National Digital Equity Center, sent out to people? Do you know, or a rough, how many people
I
have?
think we're approaching 800 or 900. We're now getting about 50 requests per week.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, and then there are all of the devices that were purchased by partner organizations. So for instance, they might, we did a project with the Southern Maine area on aging. They purchased device and they would put the devices in the hands of their volunteers or the people they were serving. So there's that whole group of devices that are out there.
Thank you. And so Susan's dropped in the chat her work email for all of you. I'm assuming somebody must have. Rob, did you have a question for Susan?
Yeah, and I just wanted to say that was a terrific presentation. And I'm just so I'm really happy to know there's all this going on. I mean, it's really terrific. I have just a nerdy question. I never heard 3/1, 7/1 expression as a broadband capacity thing. What can you explain what that is? It's not terribly important, I know, but I'm just curious.
So in the broadband world, there's upload and download speeds. Download speeds tend to be higher than upload speeds.
Yeah.
So when you're looking at building broadband in your community, the speed matters. So in a fiber connection, there's two terms: asymmetrical and symmetrical. Asymmetrical means that the upload and download speeds are not the same. Symmetrical means that they are the same. So go back to the libraries. The libraries have a symmetrical connection. That means that you can upload. And when we think about that, back years ago, it didn't matter, right? Because it was businesses that might need that upload speeds. But when you think about what your use of technology is, every time you take a picture and you save it, it's saving to the cloud. You're uploading that picture. So we're using, as consumers, we are using much more upload than we have ever done before. And it's only going to get more as more software apps come out, or technology, all of the things that are becoming more of our everyday lives. Yeah.
And as we're doing more video conferencing and as the speed of the network gets faster and there's more and more capability to do more and more interesting things. Exactly. So okay, so 3/1, 7/1 is a ratio of download to upload.
Right. So seven megs down, 1 meg up, 3 megs down, 1 meg up.
Or both symmetrical is you've got equal capacity up and down.
Correct.
And all the libraries have 100 meg symmetrical ring. Wow.
At least, and many of them even more, as the Maine School and Library Network has built out their connections. Most of their connections are fiber connections now.
Wow, that's great. Well, thank you. Boy, it's terrific.
Thank you.
Hey, Susan.
Hi, Sarah. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you. Are you in the warm place or the cold place?
In beautiful Fort Myers.
That's what I thought. I'm a little jealous today. Anyways, I have a question that's a little further down the pathway here. What should be, as we're reviewing provider proposals to towns or to regions, what should be our expectation of how providers show up and talk about and propose ideas about digital equity and inclusion in our towns and regions?
So we work with a lot of towns and have, work with the Island Institute, some of the consultant Mission Broadband, Axiom, several of the others. And for some of the projects that are going on at the onset, they're bringing in a digital equity and digital inclusion plan. So let me talk about the town of Searsport. They did a broadband, community broadband plan. They've decided they want to do a fiber to the home. They also asked for a digital equity and digital inclusion plan. And in that plan, we talked about ways to increase we talked about the need to address affordable broadband. And the reason for that was 25% of the homes in Searsport had a family median income of 25K or less. That means if they're building a fiber to the home project, and typically fiber, 60, 70 or so dollars per month, they were going to make the digital divide deeper, because those low income families might not be able to afford that price every month. And so they needed to have an affordable broadband plan. They also wanted to educate their community members. And when we talk about broadband is the how. How are we going to get everybody connected? Digital inclusion is the why. Why is it important? Well, it's important for a healthcare visit. It's important to be a remote worker. It's important to join meetings like this if you have a good broadband connection. And so the community, the library, and the town office, both are partners, are one of our on-site class partners, and both are holding classes in Searsport. They haven't even they're not building the network yet, right? They got to figure out the funding and all the rest of it, but they're promoting the affordable connectivity program, because they know that there are people who are qualified for that. They came to me a couple months ago after we wrote the plan, and they said, how are we going to know what 25% of those homes are low income? How will we know who needs us? And so that's when we suggested that they start doing the affordable connectivity program classes at their town office, promote it as a benefit, not that, because who doesn't like a discount, right? And so you promote it in the positive, right? Did you know that you could get this discount? You should come to this class and find out if you're eligible. That's a different message than let's figure out who's poor in our community, right? Because that's confidential information. No one's going to know, right? And so the town worked with the town office and the library are working in they both are doing classes, and they're providing this, they're promoting this in their community. They're getting ready when they have to, before the fiber connection comes in, they're trying to educate their community of what they can do with broadband, how they can increase their skill levels, all before that fiber connection comes in. Because take rate matters, right? So let's flip it a little bit. If you're a broadband provider, the number of people who sign up for your network matters. It's how you meet your return on investment. You build a network and only 20% of the homes subscribe to it, you're probably going to be in trouble, right? Because you have to make enough money in order to pay back whatever debt there is, or the maintenance of it. That you're going to need to make enough, you're going to have enough people subscribing. And so when you can get people engaged in understanding the why is this important, then take rate starts to climb. people understand the value of of what that network will mean to that community. And so if you can, if we can increase take rate by 10% or 20%, that's the difference of that network being successful and meeting it and meeting that return on investment, and possibly to continue building out that network or increasing the capacity of that network. The more people you have on the network, the better financial model that you have in delivering service.
Jean, I saw your hand is up.
Thanks, Susan. That was great.
You're welcome.
Hi,
Sharon.
Susan. We spoke
you.
earlier, a couple of months ago, about the need here in Eastport to do education if we want to get broadband, because our population does pretty much skew elderly, and so education needs to happen. But a question that I have,
Yeah, I hear you fine.
do
Let's talk about
providers have
broadband,
rates for
internet here. Yeah.
people who are seasonal? Because I'm thinking for us to get a good population signed up, we're going to have to sign up our seasonal users as well. Is there an opportunity for that in broadband companies?
So it's going to depend on the provider. It's going to depend on the financial model. I'd refer you to Roque Bluffs and ask them
Right.
about, ask them what they're doing for their seasonal. There's a rate for seasonal. They have to sign up for so many months in order to join the network, because it's not going to work on your seasonal residents to say, oh, I'm only there for the month of July, so I'm only going to pay you for a month. You got to pay for that network
Mhm.
going forward, and you're going to need to have as many people sign up for it as you can. Every community is going to be different, and working with your providers, it might be different. But I think Roque Bless had a good model. And I don't know, Elaine, do you or Crystal, do you remember? I want to say it's like an 8-month or 10 months or something that they have to pay for.
I'm not sure.
I
Okay.
don't know.
Okay,
I don't know
could,
either. Susan.
Elaine or Crystal send me Lisa Hanscom's contact information, and I'll get a hold of her.
I'll do that, Jenny.
Thanks. Thank you, Susan.
Thanks, Jean.
So I have another question. If we've got quite a few communities here, and so if a community wanted to get started with the with the classes, they could reach out to you and see if the local libraries to partner with local libraries or town offices to get these classes, or on location or something like that.
Yeah, so I sent Elaine a PDF of the PowerPoint, and I sent her a document that is about the partner on-site classes, and I sent her a list of all the classes. So Elaine, I'm sure will send that out to all of you, and it will be available as materials going forward. Reach out at any point. My email is in here. If you're interested, shoot me an email. We can have a conversation about this, and I can get you connected to all the right people within the National Digital Equity Center to start those classes on a local, to be a partner, to promote them, or just refer people, because you can do that too. On our website, we have, let me pull that up, because I think that might be helpful for all of you. I'm going to share screen again. Okay, so on our website, we have our main programs, and for affordable devices, you can go in and where do we go here? To request a device. Where am I going here? You can send an email, you can give us a call. There's a referral in here. I think I'm missing it. Classes and devices. Oh, there we are, right here. I went too fast. Okay, so here, anyone can, so organizations, we have a lot of organizations, healthcare centers, older adult organizations that will refer somebody to us. So you can come in here, or you can send this link to anyone that might want a device. They're just asking, you know, some basic information. We do say that if you are referring someone, make sure they know that we are going to call them from the National Digital Equity Center. So if you're referring somebody, just say someone's going to reach out to you, because we get these requests, and then one of our admin people call that person directly to talk about the device. When we set somebody up with a device, we're also evaluating what their skill level might be, and if they might need to have some individual attention to get them up and running on that particular device. So we spend a lot of time up front. We don't just put a device out there and say, oh, you're on your own, you need to figure it out on your own. We don't do that. So everyone gets personalized attention when they get at one of our devices.
We have a question from Martha, but Martha, I want to interject a question myself right here on this topic. Susan, are there opportunities for municipalities who maybe want to transition over to remote meetings so that more people can get involved? Is there assistance to help them get both the technology and the knowledge? And then
Yes.
Martha, please jump in when we're finished.
Yes, we do some Zoom classes and teaching organizations or individuals on learning how to use Zoom, how to make sure that you don't get Zoom bombed, and unwanted people come onto your session, and how to record those meetings so that they become public knowledge. On our board meetings, our NDEC board meetings, we record the meetings and they become part of the minutes, so that we can refer back to those Zoom sessions. So it's one of the options that you all have as a community. And it's nice as a community to be able to offer those meetings for perhaps your seasonal people who are really interested, invested in your community, or people who are homebound and would like to attend the meetings, but the weather's awful or they don't have transportation. So I think, having those meetings online, it enlarges it enlarges your scope of the people who will join those meetings if they can do them remotely.
Thank
Time
you.
for my question?
Mhm. Yep.
I was interested, I'm in Lubec, and we're just kind of, it feels like early days. It is for me early days in looking at this broadband thing, although I know people in town have been thinking about it, working on it for some time. My question is, do you have any information on the extent to which you've already been involved, if any, in Lubec, as far as these classes and courses and handing out devices? Is there an awareness that you know of in my town for your services?
Yes, we have a partner agreement with the Lubec Community Outreach Center. And
Wonderful, thank you.
so they're in the process. They've been trained. They will be offering classes there. Lubec, we help them with a grant for Maine Community Foundation for equipment that they could keep at their location, as well as to get better connectivity to do video conferencing. So Elodie was really good. She really, she spent a lot of time with us. So yeah, Lubec is coming right along.
Yay, us.
Sandra, you have your hand raised.
Hi. Hello, Susan. Good to see your face again.
I think.
And thank you for hosting these informational sessions. I'm actually in Hancock County, but my question teeters on Martha's request as well, working with towns. Curious about suggestions on towns that really don't want to be part of the digital equity. And what is a better avenue when there's community volunteers and committees that want to be part of connectivity? Is it better to work with a library or a school, or what have you found in other communities?
Yeah, so some town offices are too little, right? They don't have space to bring people in, or they're really part-time. So sometimes the town office is not the right partner. Libraries are great partners. We've worked with many libraries across the state, and libraries are great partners. And for many libraries, it means that they can offer additional services without using a lot of resources, because a lot of libraries are all part-time. And my own personal feeling on libraries is that the more people that are engaged at libraries, the better it is that when it comes time for town meeting and they have to vote for budget, the more people who visited that library are likely going to approve a budget for them. And so if they can get in a whole other different group of people who don't normally go into the library for digital literacy classes, I think it's a win. And then community centers, or churches. If there's a church basement, that there might be some interest. I mean, they have to have an internet connection. So that's an important piece right there, right? And a good enough internet connection to allow for that video conferencing session to go on. Older adult organization, we work with a lot of age-friendly communities and we'll hold classes. Adult education, we work with all of the adult education in Washington and Hancock County. They all are holding classes. They're all, if you go up on our website on on-site classes, you'll see a lot of those adult ed programs are already on board with us. Any place that you can have a public gathering of people, that's sort of the criteria. And then who is going to be the point person, who's going to help facilitate those classes? And then we'll provide the training. So it doesn't have to be one or the other. We also have communities where there are multiple places, like Searsport, it's the town office and the library that are both partner organizations. So we're happy to work with any community, organization, grassroots, group of people, whatever it's going to take to provide, to promote those classes and public awareness.
If there's not another question, to follow up on a comment you just made, Susan, with regards to assistance, you mentioned partner affiliate on site and volunteers. Could you speak a little bit more about how that works?
Sure. So the partner affiliate is the on-site. So a community decides that they want to hold classes at their location. We're going to bring the instructor in over Zoom, and there's going to be a facilitator at that location to help those that are attending the class to participate in the class. That's one. Volunteers are community members that want to help, right? And they might want to do some one-on-one tutoring. It's not unusual to see somebody from a library that is going to be available an hour a week to provide one-on-one assistance, or an older adult organization that wants to help get somebody up online. I talked about the Southern Maine Agency on Aging, and their volunteers, when the pandemic hit, their volunteers couldn't go to their clients' homes anymore. And so we trained the volunteers to provide classes to the clients they were serving and got technology into their hands. So there's a lot of different ways that volunteers can help. We have volunteers in our Southern Maine office that come in and help our staff provision and take some of the phone calls for people requesting tablets. So there's lots of different opportunities for folks to help us.
Have you worked with the schools at all, Susan? I was just thinking about youth engagement, and seniors in high school have so many volunteer hours. It seems like their tech clubs might be a good match for that.
There's a group down in Skowhegan that there's high school students volunteer to work in a downtown location, and they have a tech hub. They provide technology training to older adults at their location, two or three afternoons a week. People can just drop in. I think that for many of our youth, getting them into a volunteer role and helping the people in their community is a great idea. We've worked with 4-H clubs on this. I just heard from Goodwill New England. They have a group of students that are interested in taking classes and as well as helping others. So there's most of the people we serve are 18 and older, but we are open to any group that might want to do skill building with teenagers and high school students would be perfectly fine.
Thank you.
What a fantastic, just to follow up on that, Susan, what a fantastic way to have intergenerational, just amazing, just to have the young and the elder population working together. And sometimes I know that as I get older, I think I know everything, and but our young adults and our youth, they're pretty tech savvy. But what an amazing way to combine generations like that. That's awesome.
Yeah, there's some caution around this. Everything has to be in public place, right? And so we don't allow anybody to go, even our instructors, they're not allowed to go to anyone's home. All of our volunteers have a background check. They have to sign a code of conduct and agree to the rules of our organization. So there's some, we want to make sure that it's a good experience for everyone. The volunteers go through a lot of vigorous training before we sort of set them loose to provide service to the people in their communities. So, I think that the biggest thing is where's public space. That's the big one. Where are they, like in the library is great, or at a senior center where there are other people around and they're not in a closed setting. I think that's important for any volunteer, and for the organization that's hosting that volunteer. You want to make sure that they're following their rules as well.
Were there more questions for Susan? That's it. She answered everything. Go ahead, Jeannie.
I just want to speak for the quality of the teachers that she has teaching the online classes. This has been one of my pandemic go-tos. I've taken a lot of the classes, and I've taken them more than once because I don't always get it the first time. But they are so patient and so good with people who just are novices to coming online. They're very patient teachers, and I just want to commend you, Susan, on the quality of your digital teachers. They're great.
Oh, thank you, Jean. Our instructors are geographically placed across.
I'd like to also say that Jerry's.
Go ahead. I think there's just a little lag. Go ahead and finish your question.
Nope. Okay. So all of our teachers are geographically placed across the state. When we've hired teachers that they've had experience working with adults and teaching them in one form or the other. Then really the number one criteria is their compassion for others, right? If they are compassionate, then we can teach them to teach others. We were very lucky to have Elaine as a teacher for quite a while, and people love it. They love going to her classes. She's compassionate, she's caring, and that comes across. We also do a lot of professional training. So we did a training with the Dementia Alliance. We were working with the University of New England, and we had many, we have a lot of older adults, and the group that taught our entire staff were on little things like, what was the color of your background? Was your video on? What colors were you wearing? Was the font in the handouts, was it big enough for people to learn? And our staff, after they attended that session, immediately changed how they were teaching. They listened. And so that, I think, is important for us as an organization to make sure we're meeting people where they're at. We just had a discussion with the Maine Immigration Rights Commission. We'll work with them on, and they'll provide translators and translate materials, because we want to make sure that we're reaching all Mainers and no one is left behind. And so I think having that sort of that eye on that, are we meeting people where they are? And if we're not, we need to figure it out. We need to change our direction. So so thanks, Jeannie, for that, for those wonderful comments. And I will make sure that our staff know, we'll pass them along to our staff.
Susan, are you able to provide the data that you shared about the towns?
The ones that is in the PowerPoint presentation?
Yeah, the ones that you downloaded.
And where it comes from?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can do that. It's coming out of the American Community Survey data.
I think, and maybe Sarah, correct me if I'm wrong, were you looking to get a copy of the slide deck?
No, I was just getting a link to the American survey data. I was
see.
unclear about
Okay.
where it was coming from. I want to see how deep it goes. That's
Yeah,
all.
so we purchased the data so that we have it in we don't have to do as much searching and poking around on site, as you're probably aware, right? So we
Yeah.
purchased the data, but it is all coming from American Community Survey data. And those additional questions, those broadband survey questions are also, it's a different data set. So there's actually 2 data sets that it's coming from.
Okay. And is it possible to get access through the Equity Center, Susan, by town for added town information? Or is that something I can just go on and do my deal?
You certainly can do it. And,
Okay.
and you'll see some of the newer data that's going to come up from 2020 data,
Right.
which is gonna, there'll be some change. I'm not expecting it's typically not a huge change in numbers from 2018 to 2020, but we might be surprised when we see
Yeah.
that.
Okay,
Yeah.
great, thanks.
Yeah, and especially think about that too. 2018 to 2020 included the pandemic. So it's going to be interesting to see the variation of the data from then versus now. And, the increase in use, the increase in broadband connection, the increase in computers.
Debbie has a question about the town of Charlotte. Has there been any contact with folks from Charlotte to try to facilitate community meetings?
I've not heard from anyone from Charlotte.
Okay, and they could reach out to you.
Yep, we'd love to chat with them.
Great. And Sandy?
I just tagging off of the data sets that you have, Susan. And earlier you mentioned the seasonality of things. So broadband surveys are being conducted without the seasonality input in a lot of cases. So how is that impacting the communities in their digital equity? What impact does that have?
So it's a great question. So, you're all aware, I'm sure, of the speedtest.org, right? And so we get data from FCC that's not great, pretty bad, actually, if I really want to be honest about it. So doing those speed tests in a community matters. That includes those seasonal homes, right? We see an uptick in students who join classes during those summer months that are likely, they're giving us their main address, but I suspect that they probably are seasonal. We haven't asked that question. But I think but we can see it in the numbers, especially along those coastal communities where you have Jonesport, there's an influx of people who come in. It's not huge, but it's definitely, it's definitely there. I think that, you know, it's the strategy from those local communities. Do you have meetings that include their seasonal people during the height of the season, or do you wait till everybody goes home and you have them? And it depends on the community, right? Because everybody sort of approaches it a little bit different. But I think, you know, I think that seasonal people can be really supportive and can, you know, that they want to help that local community. And, you know, we've seen that with a lot of the island and the coastal communities. You heard from Krista last week, you know, she's seeing that all the time. There are seasonal home, people stay in their homes longer. You know, during the pandemic, people came from outside of Maine to come stay here at their seasonal homes as long as they had a good broadband connection. I have a friend who works for the New York Public Library. He rents a house in Northeast Harbor every single year for 2 or 3 weeks. And pandemic hit, he came and he stayed here for 2 years, right? He has a good broadband connection. He could work for the New York Public Library from Northeast Harbor. It's a beautiful thing, right? We've talk to Kevin Ray in Eastport about the uptick in homes that have sold in Washington County. It's an incredible number. We now have a housing shortage in our county. Whoever would have thought that? I have a friend from England who is looking for a house in Jonesport, none to be found, right? And so we have quality of place and we have to capitalize on that. And broadband matters in quality of place because people can stay longer and longer and longer. You know, I think in my early days at Axiom, we always saw an uptick during the summer months, and then Labor Day would come and they would, you know, people would suspend service. And then it was Columbus Day, and then it was Veterans Day, and then it was Thanksgiving. People stayed longer with a broadband connection. So I think on the economics of broadband, you have to consider that in our county for sure.
Just following up on that just a little bit, Susan, last week during Krista's Broadband 101 session, I had mentioned about in Eastport, people are staying, because that's where I live, but people are staying longer and longer there as well. They can work remotely. They have decent broadband access. And so we have our neighbors are from Texas, and they stay about 10 months a year now. They're in Eastport about 10. They don't want to see January and February, but they'll be back next month. They can't do that. They go back to Texas and say heck with that. But it also you can attract a huge telecommuting population, and you know, like we've got quality of place. We do, and this was kind of discussed last week as well. Broadband is extremely important, and it's a huge part of quality of place, aside from the natural beauty and natural resources that.
Absolutely.
Well,
and Eastport started its campaign, Elaine, when you were city manager, right? Of you can do remote work from Eastport, Maine, and you can come and live here. And you know, and you know, I mean, broadband was okay, not fiber, right? But it was enough to get people to be attracted to the area. It was a great strategic move on Eastport's part to set them apart from everybody else who's on this call in the communities that they're representing, right? They decided to go the remote route, and you know, you got some traction on that.
Sorry, I just someone just direct messaged me. So yeah, okay. Did anybody have any other questions for Susan? Any comments? All right. Well, in that case, I would say that we can. First of all, I want to thank you all very, very much for attending. And Susan, thank you so much for your time. As always, just an amazing presentation. I want to remind everybody that we will be posting to the website all of the information, Susan's slide deck, and the free course catalogs and everything else will all be posted to the website, as will the recording of today's session. And then I think, Crystal, you also emailed all the participants as well, if I remember correctly.
Yes, I did, and I can do that again. I just put the website link in the chat for where everything will be located.
Fantastic. Thank you, Crystal. So when you go to click on that link, you'll notice, whoops, I think somebody got bumped out. Just let them back in. So, but you'll notice when you went to register for these broadband sessions, that the link said register for this session on this date. Now that's been replaced by view that session, or, you know, to listen or watch the recordings, and to view the slide decks or the PowerPoint slides. So it's just back where you were, just instead of saying register, Crystal changed it over. So now it says to view the materials. So I hope to see everyone next week, because next week is a big deal, isn't it, Crystal?
Yes, it is.
Because this is where it is we're kind of going for here. We are moving on to community engagement, which is a very big deal. And already some of you are talking about this, like Debbie from Charlotte, you know, looking for some, and Sarah and others, or Sandra or others are saying, you know, how do we kind of get people motivated on this? So next week, community engagement. And then after that, we're going to take a break from sessions for a little while so you can put into practice all the good stuff you've learned so far. So, all right. Thank you all so very, very much.
Thanks,
Thank you
everyone.
all.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Susan.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you so
everyone.
much.
Yeah,
And
thank
stay
you,
warm,
everyone.
Susan.
Appreciate it.